There comes a moment in life where we realize something powerful. We've been spending more time trying to be accepted than trying to be excellent. More energy trying to fit in than trying to grow. And the truth is why we stay stuck. Because the moment you care too much about what other people think, you give them permission to shape your life. You let their doubts become your limits. Most people walk through life chasing validation, likes, praise, recognition, applause. You start small, a pat on the back, a compliment, a reassuring nod, but over time it becomes a silent addiction. You begin to measure your worth based on how others respond to you. The problem is when your value is tied to other people's approval, you become a prisoner to their opinion. And in that prison, clarity dies. You can't see your path clearly when you're constantly adjusting it to make others comfortable. You can't hear your own voice when you're always listening for applause. That's the cost of validation. It robs you of your inner compass. You begin to filter your actions, your decisions, your goals through a lens of will they approve, instead of is this right for me? The tragedy is that we end up building lives we don't even recognize because they were designed by the expectations of others. Now here's the shift. When you detach from validation, everything changes. You stop performing and start living. You stop reacting and start creating. You begin to act with integrity, not out of a desire to impress, but from a place of truth. Detachment doesn't mean you become careless or disconnected. It means you stop letting approval define your direction. It's the difference between acting with purpose versus acting for applause. Clarity shows up the moment you let go of needing to be seen a certain way. That's when you can finally ask the real questions. What do I believe in? What do I want to create? What am I willing to fight for, even if no one understands it? These questions can't be answered when you're still performing for validation. They require honesty. They require solitude. And most importantly, they require the courage to be disliked by some in order to be fully aligned with yourself. You see, when you stop needing validation, your choices get sharper. You're no longer swayed by trends, peer pressure, or social comparison. You don't change your vision just because someone questions it. You don't shrink your ambition because someone else is intimidated by it. You learn to trust your gut, even when it's uncomfortable. You stop chasing likes and start pursuing what's meaningful. And that's where clarity lives, in purpose, not in popularity. The people who create real impact, who live lives of deep fulfillment, they're not the ones who chase the crowd. They're the ones who walked their own path even when it was lonely. They made peace with being misunderstood. They knew that external applause fades quickly, but internal alignment lasts forever. That's why detaching from validation is not just powerful, it's necessary. The truth is, the validation you're searching for outside can only be built inside. It starts with knowing yourself, standing for something, following through even when no one is watching. That's how clarity forms, in the quiet moments of conviction, not the loud noise of approval. So if you want to start winning, not just in success, but in peace, purpose, and direction, start by letting go of the need to be validated. Let go of the likes, let go of trying to please everyone, let go of being understood by people who are never meant to walk your path. Clarity doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being real. And once you find that clarity, you won't need validation anymore because you'll already know who you are. Every day, we wake up with a limited supply of energy. It's our most valuable resource, more valuable than money, time, or talent. Because no matter how skilled or intelligent you are, if your energy is being drained by the wrong things, you'll never reach your full potential. And most of us, we give our energy away too easily. We give it to opinions that don't matter. We give it to overthinking, to self-doubt, to people who don't respect our boundaries. We give it to endless scrolling, meaningless arguments, and trying to prove ourselves to people who have already made up their minds. And then we wonder why we feel stuck, exhausted, unmotivated. It's not that we're doing too much. It's that we're doing too much of the wrong things. The moment you stop caring about what drains you, you begin to reclaim your energy. And when you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your power. See, energy is not just about being physically rested. It's about emotional clarity, mental space, and spiritual alignment. If you're constantly giving yourself away to things that don't serve you, you will never have enough left for the things that do. That's why it's not selfish to protect your energy. It's survival. It's smart. It's how you sustain your growth. You have to get honest with yourself. What is stealing your energy? Maybe it's a conversation you keep replaying in your head. Maybe it's trying to be liked by everyone. Maybe it's trying to do everything perfectly all the time. These patterns seem small, but they eat away at your strength. They chip away at your focus. And if you don't address them, they turn into habits, and habits shape your life. Reclaiming your energy starts with boundaries, not walls, not cold detachment, but clear, intentional choices about where you invest yourself. You don't have to engage in every argument. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You don't have to be everything to everyone. That's not your job. Your job is to protect the fire inside of you, the energy that drives your vision, your discipline, your ability to create and connect. When you start honoring that, everything changes. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You stop running on fumes. You start waking up with purpose. Your mind becomes clearer, your emotions more stable, and your focus sharper. And from that place, you move differently, not reactively, but intentionally. It's not about doing less, it's about doing what matters more. The right energy fuels the right action, and the right action leads to progress. But you'll never get there if your energy is constantly hijacked by fear, noise, or guilt. You don't owe your energy to people who constantly drain you. You don't owe your energy to outdated versions of yourself that no longer reflect who you are. Growth requires you to leave behind the habits that exhaust you and step into rhythms that empower you. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. Saying no, stepping back, protecting your space, it might feel unfamiliar. But the discomfort is temporary. The peace you gain, that's permanent. When you take your energy back, you don't just feel better, you become better. You become more focused, more consistent, more in control of your life. So if you want to win, not just externally, but within, you need to stop leaking energy. Let go of what drains you. Stop caring about things that keep you small. Protect your energy like your future depends on it, because it does. You are not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've been giving your power to everything except what matters. Take it back. Reclaim your energy. And watch how your entire life begins to shift. Leadership is not about being liked. It's about being real, being clear, and being committed to something bigger than yourself. But too often, people confuse leadership with popularity. They think influence comes from being accepted, from pleasing everyone, from avoiding tension, and that's where they get stuck. Because you can't truly lead while chasing approval. Approval is a moving target. What people want from you today, they may reject tomorrow. One group may cheer for your honesty while another criticizes it. One decision might gain you applause but lose you respect. If you're chasing approval, you're constantly shifting, changing your voice, your direction, your values, just to keep the crowd happy. But leadership demands the opposite. A deep, steady commitment to your principles, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unpopular. When your identity is rooted in being liked, you hesitate to make the hard decisions. You soften your standards. You delay truth. You avoid conflict. And over time, your credibility fades. Not because you weren't nice enough, but because people can feel when you're not being authentic. People don't follow leaders who try to fit in. They follow leaders who stand out. Not for the sake of rebellion, but for the sake of integrity. True leadership requires you to speak when it's easier to stay silent. To hold the line when others want to compromise. To say no when everyone else expects a yes. And that kind of clarity can't coexist with a need for approval. Because leading means you will disappoint people. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. And you have to be okay with that. Not because you're heartless, but because you're focused. The most powerful leaders in history weren't trying to be liked. They were trying to be honest. They were trying to build. They were trying to protect values that mattered, even when those values were inconvenient. And they understood something that many forget. Approval is temporary, but impact is permanent. You have to choose. Do you want the temporary comfort of being liked by everyone? or the lasting satisfaction of knowing you stood for something real, because you can't have both. Trying to lead while seeking validation is like driving with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You won't get anywhere. When you let go of the need to be approved, you unlock something powerful. Stop chasing approval. You actually earn deeper respect. Not from everyone, but from the right people. From the people who recognize courage. From the people who are looking for real leadership, not just likability. You don't need to be everyone's favorite. You need to be someone they can trust. Trust comes from consistency, not popularity. From standing firm, not swaying. From leading with principles, not pandering to preferences. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. It needs more aligned people. People who know who they are, what they believe, and where they're going. That's what inspires others to follow. Not charisma, not charm, but conviction. So stop chasing the applause. Stop adjusting who you are to avoid judgment. If you're going to lead, do it fully. Stand up, speak with clarity, move with purpose. Even if it costs you approval, it will gain you something far greater, the ability to lead with your whole heart, without compromise. And that is where true leadership begins. Fear controls more lives than failure ever will. It hides in hesitation and overthinking, in playing small, whispers in our ears, telling us to stay quiet, stay safe, stay the same. And most people listen. Not because they want to, but because they've been trained to. Conditioned to believe that discomfort is danger and that risk is recklessness. But the truth is, freedom from fear is a superpower, one of the rarest and most powerful forces a person can possess. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up as perfectionism. Sometimes it wears the mask of procrastination. Other times it looks like needing permission before taking action. But no matter what shape it takes, fear always has the same goal: to keep you where you are. It wants you to believe that what's familiar is safe, even when it's unfulfilling. It wants you to believe that what's known is better than what's possible. And then the longer you listen to it, the more believable that lie becomes. But the moment you stop letting fear decide for you, something shifts. You become dangerous. Not in a destructive way, but in a powerful way. Because when you no longer fear judgment, you speak more freely. When you no longer fear failure, you show up more authentically. That's the power of freedom from fear. It unlocks everything else. Most people wait for the fear to go away before they move. But that's not how it works. You don't become fearless by waiting. You become fearless by acting in spite of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's choosing to move forward even when fear is present. And the more you practice it, the more your fear begins to shrink. It loses its grip. Its voice gets quieter. Your confidence grows louder. Fear thrives in secrecy. It grows in silence. But when you name it, when you confront it, when you walk straight through it, you begin to see it for what it really is. A signal, not a stop sign. A test, not a truth. Fear says, what if you fail? Freedom says, what if you fly? When you're free from fear, you make decisions faster. You take risks that others avoid. You try new things. You step into rooms where you once felt small. You trust yourself. And people notice that. They feel it. Because true confidence is magnetic. Not the kind that says, look at me, but the kind that says, I know who I am, with or without approval. This kind of freedom doesn't mean you become reckless. It means you become aligned. It means you stop living a life built around avoidance and start living a life built around vision. You don't avoid failure. You embrace growth. You don't avoid criticism. You embrace authenticity. And you realize that fear is a tool you can use, not a wall you have to obey. It takes work, it takes reps. But each time you choose courage over comfort, you reclaim more of yourself. And over time, fear loses its control. That's when things start to change. That's when you become unstoppable. Because a person who is no longer ruled by fear can go anywhere, try anything, and become everything they were meant to be. So don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait to be fearless. Step forward, even if your hands are shaking. Speak up, even if your voice trembles. Growth is not just about adding more to your life, it's just as much about letting go of habits, mindsets, relationships, and identities that no longer align with who you're becoming. It's one of the hardest parts of evolving because we're wired to hold on. We cling to the familiar even when it's not serving us. But the truth is, you can't rise while clinging to what's keeping you grounded. We hold on to comfort because it feels safe. We hold on to approval because it feels validating. We hold on to routines because they feel predictable. But none of those things guarantee growth. In fact, most of the time, they prevent it. Because growth lives just outside your comfort zone. It's found in the stretch, in the challenge, in the space where things are no longer easy, but they're meaningful. Letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity. It's a conscious choice to stop letting your past define your future. It's the realization that not everything you started with was meant to go with you. Sometimes it's a mindset like perfectionism, self-doubt, or comparison that's holding you back. Other times, it's a toxic environment, an old identity, or even a version of success you've outgrown. And that's the scary part. Letting go feels like loss. But what if it's actually the beginning? What if that empty space you fear is actually where your next chapter begins? The moment you release what no longer fits, you make room for what truly belongs. That's the paradox of growth. It often starts with surrender. We live in a culture that worships more goals, more hustle, more wins. But growth isn't always about accumulation. Sometimes it's subtraction. The bravest thing you can do is release what's comfortable so you can reach for what's meaningful. And yes, it takes courage. It takes clarity. It takes a willingness to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty, knowing it's the path to something better. Think about it. Every breakthrough in your life likely came after a moment of letting go of fear to try something new, letting go of judgment to express your truth, letting go of control to trust the process. Every step forward requires a step away from something else. And that's not failure. It's transformation. You can't carry everything with you. You can't grow while dragging the weight of the past. At some point, you have to make the decision, do I want to be comfortable or do I want to grow? Because the two rarely go hand in hand. Letting go doesn't always mean walking away from people or situations. Sometimes it means letting go of how you think things should be, letting go of timelines, letting go of your need to have everything figured out. It means releasing the pressure and giving yourself permission to evolve at your own pace, in your own way. And in that space of surrender, clarity starts to rise. You begin to see yourself more clearly. You begin to hear your inner voice. You begin to align with the person you're becoming instead of who you used to be. That's when the shift happens. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. Don't be afraid to let go. Don't see it as failure. See it as growth. See it as a necessary part of your evolution. Because every time you let go of what's no longer right for you, you move one step closer to your highest self. You were never meant to stay the same. Growth demands change. Change demands release. And release is the first step to becoming everything you're capable of being. Focus isn't just about concentrating harder or trying to do more. It's about doing less with greater purpose. Real focus doesn't begin when you add more to your plate. It begins the moment you start letting go of everything that doesn't matter. Distraction isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like overcommitting. Sometimes it feels like multitasking. Sometimes it hides in busyness that gives you the illusion of progress while keeping you stuck in the same place. We live in a world that rewards hustle but rarely questions direction. You can be running fast and still be lost. You can be productive and still be disconnected. You can check every box and still feel empty. Why? Because real focus isn't just about effort, it's about alignment. And you can't align with your highest priorities until you release the ones that don't belong. Letting go is hard, not because we don't know what's unnecessary, but because we've attached our identity to it. We've convinced ourselves that being busy means being valuable, that being involved in everything means we're important. But the truth is, every yes that doesn't align with your purpose is a silent no to something that does. And over time, that misalignment creates frustration, burnout, and confusion. Focus begins with subtraction, not because you're incapable of handling more, but because you're no longer interested in carrying what drains you. You let go of projects that feel forced. You let go of relationships that create noise. You let go of roles you've outgrown and expectations that aren't yours to carry. And in that process, clarity rises. You begin to see the difference between what's urgent and what's essential. Not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. When you stop spreading your energy across everything, you start pouring it into the few things that actually matter. And that's where transformation happens, not in scattered effort, but in concentrated action. When your focus is aligned, every small step becomes powerful. You stop second guessing. You start creating. But to get there, you have to face the discomfort of saying no. You have to let people down. You have to walk away from good things to make room for great ones. And that's not easy, especially if you've built your worth around being everything to everyone. But the truth is, your growth demands that you get clear. And clarity always comes with a cost. Letting go isn't about quitting. It's about choosing. Choosing what matters most. Choosing what supports your vision. Choosing yourself, your peace, your priorities over pressure and noise and distraction. When you simplify your focus, you amplify your power. You begin to operate with precision. You start to feel momentum